Everyone, it's Carl, and I'm the prestigious Carl. But why is that today? Because we are talking about Savage Worlds Pathfinder's really cool thing called Prestige Edges.
Adventure and intrigue. Fighting monsters out of our league. We'll roll the dice and pray they're nice. A +2 and I might succeed.
Everyone, it's Carl with Eric.
Hello, or should I say hello?
And we are Tabletop Tango. Look at the bubbles, do the stuff, love your support, some likes, some subscribes. I hear that ringing the bell helps the algorithm. I hear comments, and I think this is a good one for comments because we're going to talk about Prestige Edges and be cool to think what you or hear what you think about them and which ones you like and which ones you think should be different, whatever. So lots of comments would be great. So let's get right into it. So Eric, what is a Prestige Edge?
So a Prestige Edge is very similar to the Class Edge mechanics found in the core Savage Pathfinder. It functions pretty much the same. It has the same limitations as Class Edges, which means that you can only take the first edge. So like the Class Edges, it's kind of like a tree. Where you have to take one before you can take the next one before you can take the next one, and once per rank you can only take one core, either Class Edge or Prestige Edge. So if you take Fighter, the first Fighter Edge, you can't then also take one of the Prestige Edges at the same time, the first edge in that. Also, all of the Prestige Edges are only unlocked at season, so there's no novice Prestige Edges because they're in Pathfinder, in D&D, these were like special kind of mini classes that unlocked after you had certain prerequisites, so it's still very similar, but you get these a lot sooner, so you can get these at seasons, all of them.
So again, at rank boundaries, so you're not getting these fast, right? So
no. But you can have multiple class and prestige edges. So as long as you at seasons, you could take a prestige edge, then you could technically take another class edge. There's seasons ranked class edge that you have, and then at veteran you could be taking a class edge, the second class edge, the second prestige edge, as well as a new class edge. So there's really no restriction on the amount of things you can unlock. It's just that once per rank thing. But many games still do have a restriction on how many classes and prestiges you can have.
All right. Well, cool. So let's go through the prestige edges. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
So why don't you jump in and start off with, I hear it's your favorite. It's a great
it's definitely one of my favorites. Arcane Archer. Now, Arcane Archer, it's one of those like class or prestiges that is often loved, but not really implemented well all the time. I think they did a very good job here. So seasoned, you need a shooting of D8 and you need mystics powers or an arcane background. So you have to have that martial and that arcane background. Basically, you automatically can grant one quality into any arrow you fire, and that's per shot. So all of the edges that I'm about to read, they all give special qualities that you can add to arrows, and that's all that this prestige edge gives you. But it gives you a lot of options. So the first one gives you enhance, which is the Arcane Archer. The Archer's arrow adds +1 to shooting and damage. Also, there's the trapping option, which basically you can add on like an environmental trapping, like fire, cold, darkness, which works really well with synergy and weaknesses in Savage Pathfinder. The next one, the veteran ranked one, Arcane Archer 2, gives you phase arrow, which is once per encounter. You can fire an arrow directly through any non-magical barrier, ignoring penalties for cover or concealment. Hail of arrows, the second option you're given, which is another once per encounter. The archer may enchant an arrow so it splits into many when fired, raining down in a large burst template. And everybody inside is subject to the attack roll, and you roll each damage separately. And the third and final one, which all prestige edges only have 3 in them, is once per turn. This is imbue. The archer can imbue any area effect power into an arrow, casting the spell with shooting and using his bow's range in place of the power's range. And the spell's area effect is centered where you actually the arrow lands. Let's see, centered. There's a little weird part there. Even if it must normally be centered on the caster, if the arrow misses, the spell fails. So that means like something that's like say a damage field is what it's saying, that normally that'd be centered on the caster. And And imbue spells cannot be shorted or use the range modifier. And then the final one here is Death Arrow. Once per day, the archer can fire a fearsome arrow throwing with deadly energy. A target shaken or wounded by the arrow must make a vigor roll or die. So you just die. Death arrows have no effect on constructs or dead. Okay, so that was a lot. I love this one just because the first two give you something that you can use every single turn. Plus one to shooting and damage is nothing to shake at, and you can add that anytime. And that trapping gives you a lot of flexibility to take advantage of weaknesses. All the other ones are, there's 2 of them are once per encounters, and you have Death Arrow, which is once per day, and the Imbue is once per turn. So, but the Imbue is really cool. That one allows you to straight cast a spell with your shooting. Now, it comes on at Heroic. So say if you just have if you're mainly about shooting and you just have some mystic powers,
but you need
just
to have,
you
need to have the power you're going to use, right? As part of your
yes,
list of
exactly.
powers,
so you have to have that power, and then you basically cast it. But you use shooting, so it's a really good thing. Most of these don't require a spellcasting roll. So if you say take, either you have you're a ranger and you have mystic powers, or you just took the arcane background edge and you kind of just didn't do too much with it. You just took maybe some buffs. Once you're getting to heroic, take the power edge and just get some really cool a blast or untangle or something, and then you have some really cool options, and you don't need a lot of that skill investment or other power edge investment. So I love this one. It gives you so much added stuff for a martial. That there's just so much fun here, and you always have something to do. Well, what is your thoughts hearing it?
Well, I think I really do like how it. I mean, I can just picture being an archer, and you're sort of beginning of an encounter, do the hail, get into it, bring in the imbue, and then you're kind of just sliding on the shield, just taking 1, 2, 3, 4 out.
Yeah.
Now the only problem I have is Death Barrel, because I thought we got past Save or Die with AD&D First Edition, to be honest with you. So how do you think a player is going to react if the big bad guy has an Arcane Archer 3 and is lobbing death arrows at the player characters? Because, it's all fair, right? So
yeah. That'll be a little rough. But I think with the death arrow, I would say you could probably soak it. Because if you soak something, you're not actually getting wounded or shaken, right? So I think any wild card, either NPC or PC, would still be able to...
right, because it says shaken or wounded, so you do have to do that
Yeah.
wound in order for it for it to trip or trigger, right? Yep. I agree. It's pretty cool. I mean, because lots of times people who are throwing arrows around, I don't know, it's not as much fun as
it's a little boring.
Yeah, folks wading into melee and being able to do shield bash and doing. I mean, they're having a lot more fun in there.
Frenzy, being able to push people, and there's just something about when you're in. At least I've found playing games that even if it's just you're just rolling attack rolls as a martial or ranged character, there's something about the drama of being up close and personal. It's just more exciting. But this gives you, and actually this reminds me of my character in your game now, where I'm playing a what are they called? What's the class I'm playing?
Oh boy.
I'm playing a Deadlands.
Huckster.
Yeah, Huckster. Thank you. And then I took the edge that gives me kind of a similar thing where I can add magical qualities to my bullets. So I'm having a lot of fun with that. So yeah,
it's cool.
Very thumbs up. This is an A+ for me. So
off the mic, we said we weren't going to grade them, but we are. Okay, A+.
At least this one. Yeah. Okay. So now Arcane Trickster, Carl.
Arcane Trickster. This starts out. Obviously, they, like you said, they start a season. Need arcane background or mystic powers. Have to have the sneak ability, attack ability, and then thievery D8. So this is the thief bringing in some of those kind of arcane ideas, and so. Thieves blend subtle aspects of the arcane with cunning and sleight of hand. So in this case, starts with range, legerdemain. Just show how smart I am. The trickster can use the thievery at a range of 5 inches, 10 yards, or less at a -2 penalty. So I guess they can reach out and touch someone in a sense. Impromptu attack once per encounter. Trickster can maybe use the sneak attack ability, even if the foe is isn't vulnerable or subject to a drop. That's pretty cool. Anyway, we'll talk about that more. And then Arcane Trickster 2, we add in Invisible Thief. And this is once per day. As a free action, the character may cast Invisibility for 1 power point, no arcane skill roll required. And it's cast as if it was with a raise. So that's pretty cool too. And that's all you get in that one, right? And then Arcane Trickster 3 adds, in addition, the Trickster's attack spells benefit from the sneak attack ability. So overall, that's, I like the, honestly, I like that season, the impromptu attack, where you can use sneak attack even if the foe isn't vulnerable or subject to drop. I think that's extremely useful.
Yeah.
So what do you think about these guys? There's a couple that are useful. I don't know if I think all of them are all that great, but
yeah, I really like Arcane Trickster, and when we talked about it in class edges, when I wasn't the biggest fan of Rogue because I thought it was kind of limiting, but Arcane Trickster, you have to have a sneak attack ability. So the Arcane Trickster and the next one are kind of unique in that they're the only ones that you specifically have to have a specific class edge to have. All the other ones are kind of more open. But because sneak attack is only available through the Rogue, you have to have Rogue first.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I really like the first edge for Arcane Trickster. I like a lot. I mean, Ranged Ledgerman, that's basically what that's similar to like using Mage Hand to pick locks from D&D and Pathfinder. That's what they went with there. The -2 is a little heavy, but it's still, you can do a lot of like tomfoolery and tricksy stuff with that. The impromptu attack, like you said.
See, you thought about
but
you thought about like a lock at range. All I'm thinking about is tomfoolery.
Yeah, tomfoolery. I'm picking pockets, messing with people. I mean, there's a lot you can do with thievery. Dismantling like a mechanism of somebody's head, so stuff. I mean, it's one of those things that you can do a lot with it. So I love that ability, and it's cool that this gives you a once per encounter ability, but it also gives you something that you can use all the time out of combat. The Invisible Thief. Invisibility is powerful. It's only once per day, though. But now notice this is treated the same way as the other mystic powers. So if you actually you have to have power points, so you can spend power points to increase the duration for invisibility normally. And with that raise, that is pretty powerful. It's a little hard to swallow, though, that it's the only ability for the whole edge. So and the Arcane Trickster 3. Now that one's like you have to have a very specific build in mind. Like you really have to have, basically you take Rogue and then you're mainly a spellcaster though. That one would be you're mainly a spellcaster and you want that, your blasts and your bolts or whatever to that, and you have another you have another like caster there doing stuff that makes them vulnerable, because that's the only way you're going to get it. So that one's very specific build. So I see a lot of this as people taking the first one and then maybe skipping the other two, and then only taking 2 and 3 if you have that very specific build in mind, which can be quite powerful. I mean,
and that's the first thing.
Bolts with sneak
that's
attack.
the first thing I thought of was obviously that first season is, if I had a Rogue, I mean, I'd be all over that. And then it's like you said, the build, that invisibility part. I don't know about Trickster 3. I wouldn't see myself going that direction, but. I mean, you're at veteran, if you got nothing else that rank, I suppose. But okay.
Now what was very interesting about that too is that Arcane Trickster 2 is actually listed as a season. So that's one of the very few that's also season. Unless that's a typo.
Are you sure that's not a typo? Because it's only one per rank, and you have to take Trickster, the first Trickster.
Well,
first,
no, remember
right?
it's only the first tree, only the beginning part of the trees once per rank. So.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So if that was correct, it wouldn't be like you could take Arcane Trickster and then the next edge take Arcane Trickster 2. The only thing I'm confused about is that every other prestige edge has, they're all like seasoned, veteran, heroic. So
that's why I think it feels like it's a typo, but I mean, I don't know.
But then they have Arcane Trickster 3 as veteran, so I don't know.
Yeah, this is Rev 1.7, so I'm sure I'm wrong, and this is exactly what was supposed to be there.
Yeah.
So let's jump on and go on to Assassin then.
Cool. Yeah, Assassin, seasoned, and you need the sneak attack ability. So again, only rogues can take this. This one kind of all goes on making sneak attack even better. So we'll talk about that. So the first thing that you get for the very first edge is Death Attack. And it has to be against a living target. Yeah, a living target, and they have to have the drop. And it causes at least 1 wound after any soaking, so they had that actually caveat there. The foe then must make a vigor roll or die. If the assassin incapacitates or slays a victim he has the drop on, the victim drops quietly and without a sound. It may even be for a few moments before those nearby notice the situation. So basically, there's kind of telling GMs like, hey, if they kill somebody, it's silent and they have the chance to get away. So they're saying this is like a ninja attack, basically. Assassin 2, just a veteran one. Hide in plain sight. The assassin may magically hide in plain sight. Treat this as invisibility -4 as long as the assassin doesn't move or make a noise. Resistant to poison is the next ability. The assassin adds +4 to rolls to make to resist poison. And then the assassin 3 edge gives you Angel of Death. The Slayer gains the mystic ability to charge her attacks with a lethal death energy. If she chooses to do so, a victim slain by her hand crumbles to dust and cannot be resurrected. She may do this no more than once per day. And then the last and final ability is called Swift Death. Yeah, once per day as a free action, the assassin gains the drop over a foe of her choice, even if the target is completely aware of her presence. Okay, so overall, I am not a big fan of this at all. The first thing you get is just the death attack, which is what. While you get it at Seasoned, and the Arcane Archer got it at Heroic, they also got another ability, and everything after that is just kind of lame in my opinion. The hide in plain sight, it's like okay, if you need to if people are running around you, that's an okay ability. The resistance of poison is not that good. Well, the Angel of Death is like you said, it's more of like a dick move than anything.
Well, it feels like Swift Death. Oh, I'm sorry, talking over you. Go ahead.
I was just saying, and the Swift Death is a once per day ability, which the Arcane Trickster gets a similar ability. At Novice, that's once per encounter. Well, I mean, they get sneak attack versus it's a little bit better because they get the +4 to attack and damage. But
I think this is a assassin is the way these are defined is again it's a very very specific game. It's not even a build, but a kind of the game, the game that the game master is running. Is it important to be able to drop somebody silently? Is it important to have, to have something fall into dust? Because you really are sending this person off to do these kinds of things. But honestly, in a save versus die, I mean, I get the wounds, but you do it the right way and they're not going to be able to soak them all. Save or die at Seasoned, man, players would just crucify you if as a GM you're pulling that on them, especially if they're dying silently and they're like, it's like too bad.
Your party members don't know.
Yeah. Well, TPK, by this one little assassin who's seasoned and no big deal. It's okay. Well, you wanted to play Pathfinder, not my fault.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, for NPCs, it's a little rough, but I mean, I don't know. It's definitely not horrible. Like you can get stuff out of it, and if you're making an assassin character, these are unique things. I just don't think, compared to the other procedures that we've ever talked about and the other ones in the book, I don't think it really kind of musters up. And I personally probably wouldn't want to spend an edge on it. So,
that makes sense.
Yeah, that's that. Okay, so next one is Dragon Disciple, Carl.
Dragon Disciple. Season, Arcane background again, Mystic, and Occult D6. So this is spellcasters who embrace their draconic heritage and learn to channel their abilities to become fearsome warriors. They possess not only the repertoire of accomplished sorcerer, but also the ability to unleash the furious powers of the dragon upon their foes. See, now I screwed up upon, but boy, I got repertoire right. Okay, so they get once an encounter, breath attack. They get once an encounter as a limited action. They can breathe a cone template, attack 3d6 damage, and may be invaded just like any other breath attack, right? It has some effects. If they descend from, it depends on where they descend from. Fire, the victims can catch fire, acid, lingering damage, electricity +2 to damage to those in metal. So it basically the same as the trappings, right? Or the sort of how those work. So that's cool. Dragon Disciple 2, wings. It becomes more scaly, eyes more feral, and they grows horns and eventually get wings. So really no hiding where you're coming from there, and it grants flight. And then Disciple 3, the final one, you get dragon form, which is twice per day. As a limited action, a dragon disciple may take the form of a dragon of their bloodline. This makes size 3 and gives kind of the attributes along that, including bite, claw, attack. And if it doesn't already have it, the dragon form grants environmental resistance common to that heritage. And then it goes on to talk about what happens with gear and that sort of thing. But this is another one where, it feels like that season start. Dragon Breath is cool. I mean, that's kind of a cool thing. But if you're already a spellcaster, I know you already probably have flight in your repertoire, and so again, it feels like it's very much for a particular build and a particular character, play that you want. But that's just from a reading how I'm coming away from that.
Yeah, I mean, Dragon Disciple is one of the ones that in all the editions, they're always, it's hard to balance them.
Right.
I definitely think you said like coming off of it, it's not the strongest edge coming out of the start. I mean, the once per encounter, it's a good cone attack, and it's a free one. But it does say that it can be evaded where powers don't, so that's a little iffy. But it's 3d6, which is the same as a raise. The little riders, like the lingering damage, which is you could have added that on your own with mods, or +2 damage. That stuff. That's all stuff that you could have added for mods. So yeah, it's not the best thing if you're already a spellcaster, but it's they don't say it, but I'm assuming you're using athletics to do it, or it just happens. I'm not sure. But usually they don't state it, but I would assume it's athletics. You don't use spellcasting for it, because that would be a spell breath. Dragon Disciple 2, I think, is very powerful. I think flight at will is extremely powerful. Even if you have the fly spell, you don't have to cast it. Fly is very expensive, so Dragon Disciple 2 is worth it. It's worth it to get through the 1 to me, to get to 2. And then the form does give you a lot of options, and you can still cast spells in it. And it doesn't have it doesn't have a duration. It's just twice per day. It doesn't actually say when it ends. It does say. You can reign up to 5 minutes, and then another 5 minutes for taking fatigue. So 5 minutes is not bad. It's good enough for a combat encounter, basically. I mean, it's not long enough for more than one, but it definitely makes you beefier, even if you're a spellcaster. So overall, I think, yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, and if I had a dragon-themed character, I would definitely take it. The first one does kind of feel like an edge tax, quote-unquote, a feat tax, edge tax to me, though. The cone is not that useful. But overall, yeah, I think a pretty cool and thematic one.
Yeah, I think thematic. I guess I'm not as... I don't think it's as nice as I think you do. For your... thematic, you're right. I mean, it does have advantages. I mean, I'm not saying that they're completely worthless, but I don't know if I'm as excited about it as you were there. So
yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the Duelist.
Cool. Duelist, seasoned, agility D8, and a fighting of D8. So this is where you're gonna have your swashbucklers, probably. I mean, there's no swashbuckler class in this, which is a class in Pathfinder. But Duelist was often a prestige or an archetype now in Pathfinder 2e. But you get two abilities starting out. Yeah. Surgical Strike. The Duelist makes a surgical strike with one-handed piercing weapons. So we're talking about with a min strength of d6 or less, adding +2 to your damage total. So this is obviously a rapier. I don't really know what else would qualify. I guess
a one-handed piercing weapon?
Yeah.
I imagine there's
rapiers. I don't think a short sword is d6 or less. I don't know what other... I haven't looked extensively at the weapons in this book, but anyways, I mean, you think of rapiers when you think of dueling anyways. And then they get parry. If the duelist hasn't acted this turn, she may declare the defense maneuver after an opponent declares a fighting attack against her, but before he rolls. She discards her current action cards, and her parry bonus is a +6 instead of the normal +4 for the defend action. Duelist 2, they get Crippling Strike. A foe shaken or wounded by the duelist reduces his pace by 2 until healed. No foe can be subject to more than one Crippling Strike and can't be reduced below pace of 1. And then Duelist 3, they get deflect arrows. The Duelist can now deflect arrows, bolts, and thrown weapons. Enemies subtract 2 from athletics or shooting rolls to hit him. This stacks with dodge and similar abilities, and is ignored if the Duelist is surprised, bound, unaware of the attack, or can generally parry the projectiles. Or can't generally parry the projectiles. Okay, so overall, I'm not the biggest fan of this one. I don't think Surgical Strike is that good, just +2 to damage. I mean, that's okay. It's +2 damage. Parry's okay if you're hurting. I can see you wanting to do this, but generally losing your turn would be pretty rough. I think Crippling Strike is just pretty bad. I mean, it can be useful a little bit, but again, I don't know why they didn't give more than one thing here. Like the Arcane Archer got those 2 things each time.
Yeah,
it's kind of a lot. Duelist 3 is very strong. I mean, another +2 on top of dodging, on top of the dodge edge or whatever, is very strong. So now that only applies to throwing or shooting, not to melee. So there's a little bit of a caveat there. So if you're in a game with, it's not as powerful if it was in a modern game because there's guns, right? There's no guns. So again, it's powerful, but it's not that great. So overall, I mean, I honestly would put this below Assassin for me, probably. I don't know. What did you feel about this, Carl?
it didn't. I mean, again, it feels like some of these are just. The player has to go out of their way to kind of take advantage of them just because that's sort of the kind of person they are. I could see parry being useful if you have a game where the game master is throwing something big at you that's just coming at you, and you've seen it in the movies, right? Oh, stop it until I can get my shot in, right? Okay, fair enough. But I totally agree with the fact that Crippling Strike is ho-hum. And it should have had something to go with it too, right? I mean, you're spending an edge on this, and you reduce somebody's pace by 2. Okay, I mean, I guess if you're trying to chase someone down, that might be important.
Yeah,
but, I would skip that one altogether. Deflection, that's okay. But it was funny you mentioned in a modern game. Thank God this is Pathfinder, right? Then it's not a modern game. So,
unless they bring gunslingers in, right? But yeah, no melee there is what hurts it for me. But
yeah, I agree. I didn't think it was a big deal. I mean, if anything, maybe if that's the kind of weapon you use, maybe you can take this one season because you kind of want to be that swashbuckler. And again, by the time you pick these, hopefully you got a feel for the kind of game your game master is running anyway, and whether these are going to be useful or because some of them are kind of specific, right? I mean, like you said, you wouldn't have to worry about that parry thing if you can press the attack generally. But you got to watch out for those, those guys who are going to give you a save or die. So maybe it's good to have it. I don't know.
Yeah, the assassin owlbear. You definitely would want to defend for that. Parry for that. Okay, now moving on. If you have anything else to say, is Eldritch Knight, Carl?
Eldritch Knight. Always a great name. Season, again, arcane background, mystic powers, and a fighting of D8 plus, and that's it. So these are elite warriors who are trained in both the martial and arcane arts, learn how to take extra advantage of their prowess in both. They are versatile heroes. The Eldritch Knights are usually characters who study both martial and arcane arts. Well, that seems like kind of redundant, but so Eldritch Recharge. Anytime the knight gets a raise on damage attack rolls, athletics, fighting, shooting, or arcane skill, he regains a power point. Okay? Arcane Knight or Eldritch Knight 2, then you have the Eldritch Strike. The knight can spend 2 power points after making an attack roll to increase the total by +2. Okay, and then 3, you have Eldritch Strike Improved. The knight can spend 2 power points and after making a successful attack roll, increase the attack damage by +2. Am I just kind of jaded because I don't know? This doesn't get me excited. Maybe I just don't know what I'm looking at it. So what do you think about this one?
I think it's true to form as far as Eldritch Knight in Pathfinder and D&D. Eldritch Knight is, I love Gishes. That's why Arcane Archer is one of my favorites. Gishes are spell blades. They're the kind of mixing of martial and magic. Those are always favorite characters of mine. Eldritch Knights are always on the melee side of things without splattering of magic to enhance their melee. So they've never been that exciting. They're always more about function over pizzazz, I guess. They just kind of, this is really there to just fully, compared to the other ones, which are much more thematic, this is here to really just assist you in your build of I like to do fighting, but I have magic to back me up. Now that said, I like the first one. Getting a PowerPoint back when you're doing normal stuff is great. The other ones are good. It's just they're kind of expensive. I mean, 2 PowerPoints are kind of expensive for those things, but I like it that it's after you make the attack rolls and after you make the damage rolls. So you can very much decide, and that could be key if you kind of getting a feel for an opponent's, toughness, or getting a feel for their parry or whatever, and that you need that little bump after you've rolled. So you don't have to actually spend the PowerPoints until you've rolled. That's really good. So I do think overall it is solid.
So you're kind of using a PowerPoint as a guaranteed 2-point conviction in that.
Yeah, 2 points for attacking or 2 points for damage. Yeah, it's again, this is you're a martial character who's dabbled, and maybe you're not spending a lot, so you mainly use spells for buffing, and then you also then use them the points to kind of augment your martial stuff with Eldritch Knight 2 and 3. So I don't think it's the most exciting, like you said, but I think it for the build that you want to do, I think it does function pretty well for what it needs to be doing overall.
Right. Yeah, but for the power you're getting out of it, like Knight 3 that improved Eldritch Strike, that's heroic level.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just a couple of power points and you get a +2 damage at heroic. I mean, I just feel like at that stage, you'd have other ways of doing that, doing bonus damage, right? Especially since this is Pathfinder and there's an expectation that there'll be a little magic probably going on in the game. So yeah, okay.
But for sure, I mean, but that it's after you roll is what makes it that's what saves it for me. If it wasn't that way, then it would be complete garbage, because it's too expensive. But because it's after the roll, then you don't have to spend the time casting Smite if you just want to attack right away. You don't have to cast Smite beforehand. But yeah, it could definitely have a little bit more pizzazz. I definitely agree with you, Carl. I think it is a little. It's like as utilitarian as it gets. This is just purely just like, here's the mechanic to do this, and there's nothing else. There's no glitter, as it were. So
yeah, no glitz or glitter, just stuff. All right, so then we've got the Loremaster.
Cool. Yeah, Loremaster. Loremaster's a favorite of mine in the past, so we'll see how this one is. Smarts of D8, academics or common knowledge, or occult of a D8+. So that is an expensive one, but definitely fits. And these are gatherers of secrets and arcane lore, and they value, knowledge, basically. So the first thing they get is called lore. She gets a free reroll of making academics, common knowledge, occult, or science rolls. So that's pretty on the tin. Loremaster 2. The Loremaster gains special insight into those she's traveled adventure with. You get something called Secret, but this is a classic of the Loremaster prestige or archetype. With the Game Master's consent, she may take one ability from any core class edge she doesn't already have. She might take the Druid's Wilderness Stride ability, for example, the Rogue's Sneak Attack, or a Cleric's ability to channel energy. This doesn't confer any other traits, edges, or rules required to use this ability. We'll go back to that one. And then Lore 3, Greater Lore. The Lore Master learns 2 new powers from any of those available in the campaign. This may not be useful if a power depends on mechanics Lore Master can't make use of, but she can still learn the spell if she likes. Okay, so this is an interesting package. The first one, this is kind of similar to what I was doing for my Rogue tweak. But yeah, you get a free reroll on those, which, that's a lot of skills. And if you're like somebody who likes doing the lore character, this is actually very strong. I do like this because in Pathfinder, I found you often want to be making these lore checks more than anything else because you want to know what kind of things these creatures have. Or if that's your character, this is essential. Now, Loremaster 2. This gets very interesting. First of all, the Game Master's consent.
Oh, we might as well go on because I do not consent.
I'm not really sure, why that caveat's there. I mean, you're spending an edge on this, and you're spending an edge, and you're gaining one ability from any core class that you don't already have. So it's not like, most of the time you're not getting the full core class stuff, So I'm not really, the Game Master's consent, it's kind of like, okay. I mean, the Game Master could always turn you down, I guess, but it's kind of weird they put it there. This one's interesting. I think, generally you could just take the core class edge and you would get more. The disadvantages to that is that, if you want to get to Loremaster 3, obviously this is an unlock. You have to take this. And there's some stuff like if you don't want to have, like if you took rogue and you don't want light armor to be your limited to light armor, then you would want to take this in place. So this can be very powerful actually, even though you could just take the fighter core class edge and get the same thing, and then get access to the later fighter stuff. So this really depends. I mean, when you're kind of cherry picking out of a different class core edge, some of them are powerful, like druids have some very powerful ones, like we talked about.
Yeah, we like the druid stuff.
The druid one, you're getting like or wizard, I could see getting a familiar would be very powerful. Or getting a +1 on spellcasting rolls, whatever, if you're a cleric. So this one could be very interesting. I guess why they put the Game Master's consent there is that there could be some powerful combinations, but generally I think you're probably fine. And then Loremaster 3, getting those 2 powers, that can be really cool too, because there is limited spell list. So if you're a bard and I found that in most games, if you're not like a wizard, if you're especially like a spontaneous caster, quote unquote, which we don't really have that in this, but the kind of sorcerer or bard have more limited spell lists. This can actually be quite good. You can get some of those spells that you really want. So overall, I think Loremaster is a very, very, very good package. I think one, if that's the kind of character you're into, can be really good. But if you just want Loremaster 2 and 3, that could be kind of an edge tax there too. What was your take on the whole thing?
Well, it's interesting. I think so Loremaster, the straight one, it feels like just kind of it's an edge. It's like it's an edge, right? There's lots of edges that give you rerolls, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of an edge. And then when you get to that secret, I mean, like you said, there's other ways of getting things, but if this is the flavor you want, and you just want this one thing that comes from, it makes a lot of sense. Again, it's like an edge. It's an edge that's adding a piece. Now, like you said, if you took an edge that had all this stuff bundled in, I mean, it's probably more value there. But class edges have limitations as to when you could take them, and things like that, right? And then Loremaster 3, again, it's heroic, so it's way up there. And so now you can learn 2 powers that you did not have access to before, but it's at heroic level. So I mean, a lot's happened since then. And I'm always thinking to myself, I mean, I don't know. You guys have played into, did we ever get to heroic in any of the campaigns? We might have
tripped over legendary
once, right? I mean,
no, we've gotten to legendary.
Oh, we've gotten to legendary. That's right. Okay.
Yeah.
So by the time
you're absolutely right. Yeah, we have to value edges based on when they come on, because that's part of it too. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's valuable, but and I think it's cool. It's cooler than some of the other ones that I kind of wasn't too excited for. And I think it's kind of cool if you're like, hey, I'm the smarty guy and I'm doing some things. And oh, by the way, there's a thing that this other guy does that I can do because I'm a smarty guy. Right. And so, I mean, I think it give you a little feel of, especially folks who are playing lore characters or people who have knowledge in this area, to be able to, that makes them feel special. I think that's kind of cool. So, I mean, overall, it's good. It's good. Definitely feels like these are very balanced in the sense of you're buying an edge. We just call them prestige edges, but they're, they feel like just an edge you could buy, right? So
for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I agree. I agree with you. I think 3 comes on too late, really, to be. I mean, it's still good, but it's it comes on so late. 1, I think 2 is the standout one here, and then so even if you're this is mostly for spellcasters, it seems, but a martial character could get a lot of out of this too, like a fighter getting access to sneak attack without getting limited to light armor makes Loremaster 2 extremely powerful. So I think I underestimated that when I was first talking about it. But again, that fighter would then have to have the prerequisites of Loremaster and kind of have to take that edge as an edge tack. So I think Loremaster 2 can be very powerful, but it kind of sucks that the Game Master, they write it in that can shoot you down, I guess. I don't know. Cool. So moving on to Mystic Therouge.
Am I up for this one? Okay.
Oh yeah, it's you. Yeah.
Okay. Arcane backgrounds. Oh, this one is 2 arcane backgrounds with 2 different arcane skills at a season level, but no level on that. Just arcane backgrounds. Okay. So Mystic Therouge, right?
I always say Therouge, but that could be totally wrong.
Therouge?
Maybe Therouge, yeah.
Mystic T-Man. Place no boundaries on their magical abilities, whether they... In the comments, what's the route pronunciation? Put the little umlauts and stuff on so we know what it is. Mystic Tease, place no boundaries on their magical abilities, whether they stem from the arcane or the divine. So then they have the combined spells. They can cast 2 spells as a limited action, and must use 2 different arcane skills, declare their spells and all the power modifiers as usual, then roll a die for each. So basically, that's why they need 2 different arcane skills, is they're kind of combining these 2 things together. And the cost of the spells must be paid separately, and the effects from the critical failure applies normally, but they don't stack. Well, that's nice too. That's good. Though I've never seen people have double critical failures on anything, but I'm sure it's theoretically it's possible, right? And then they give an example. You want me to talk the example?
Sure, we can go over it. Yeah, whatever you want to do.
All right. Well, let's finish it up then. The level 2, they have spell synergy. When they use their combined spells ability, they reduce the cost of each spell by 1 power point to a minimum of 1. And then finally, at the 3, spell synthesis, the character class edge abilities can now be applied to all spells provided by any of their classes. So the character's class edge abilities can now be applied to all spells provided by any of their classes. Okay. So what are your thoughts on this one?
Oh man, this one is very powerful.
I think it's pretty cool.
Mystic Theurge was always a really good one. In the original Pathfinder, I think it was arcane and divine, and it was often like a cleric or a wizard. So I'm not sure if druids and other things can mix, but yeah. So in this, basically any 2 can mix except for like sorcerer and wizard because they both use spellcasting. Yeah, it's extremely powerful. I mean,
I like it.
The action economy of the combined, and that's all based on the combined spell mechanic. And so the action economy there is amazing. You are going to go through PowerPoints quickly. So this is very much like a pure caster character that's kind of putting everything into casting. Would have to be, right? Because you need a large power pool. You need the edges to help with power retention, all that stuff.
This isn't for a character that dabbles, right? This is
no, not at all. And
right, yeah,
and not even like somebody who's like a phase. Like you need to have a lot of stuff here. The Mystic Theurge 2 though does help with that because that's saving like up to 2 power points there. And then the third one, oh boy, Carl, this is the real meat. I mean, it's one of the most powerful abilities of the game, I think. That then you can then combine the different class edge abilities that you get for your spell stuff. So the stuff that gives you like +1 or a reroll, those combined now for spellcasting or whatever, spellcasting and whatever other roll. Stuff that gives you, so very powerful.
This feels like,
very good.
Again, this is a heroic one. So this feels like, this is worthwhile getting the heroic and say, I want to take this one. Definitely.
100%. You are heroic because, and I was trying to see some of the other combinations. So yeah, I guess do we want to kind of go over like what a case would be, how it works? Do you want to read the example or?
Sure. They have an example right here that says they cast a bolt with spellcasting D8 and healing with faith D10. And so then they roll a D8, a D10, and their wild die. So it kind of, feels a little bit frenzy-ish, right? Which may take the place of either skill die. Then they cast both spells, spend the usual power points, and may use any of the power modifiers that they wish. So that's the example that they give. But I mean, that's generally what the description said, right? Where you can cast 2, just using your different arcane skills. It's good in the example they showed the wild die as being the 1 wild die, because that'd probably be easy to kind of slip past you. So if I was playing a longer Pathfinder campaign, and I like sorcerers, I would definitely bring in a little bit of also go wizard route just so I could.
You can't do sorcerer and wizard.
I mean, You know what I mean? Just get 2 arcane
Yeah.
backgrounds, right? So thank you for correcting me.
That's the one you can't combine. Those are the one combination you can't combine.
My brain, and I don't remember everything.
No, I know.
That was farther up in the book. So but the bottom line is I would do something so I could get to that point, right? And be able to do that because it makes you so versatile.
Yes. Yeah, I would absolutely do. This is, and again, it's definitely a build, and it's probably the most spell heavy build that you could possibly do. But I would definitely just make a character for this as well, because it'd be a lot of fun to do. Cool. Yeah, and I was trying to look at combinations. There's so many combinations, though. It's kind of like Secret 2 for Loremaster. The Mystic Theurge 3 really adds, but that would really unlock a lot of stuff, and you could have a really powerful character with that. So, yeah, one of the ones to look out for.
Okay.
All
right, everybody.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for watching part 1 of going through the Pathfinder Prestige Edges, and we'll do part 2 coming up.
See you then.
And intrigue, fighting monsters out of our league. We'll roll the dice and pray they're nice. A +2 and I might succeed. Whether Cthulhu or D&D, or what's on drive through RPG.